Hello and welcome back to the Imperfectly Thriving podcast. In this episode, we are talking about something which isn't as sellable, it's not as sexy as fat loss, but it's also one of the most misunderstood phases in fat loss. One of the things which we get so confused about, we get wrong, and there's not a lot of information out there about it because it is not as sexy. Like, you are not seeing instant changes, everyday scale drops when you are at maintenance, but it should be the goal for everybody, because when we talk about weight loss, when we talk about fat loss, the goal is not to lose weight, right? The goal is, and you might be listening to this thinking, hang on a minute, yeah, I want to lose weight, Laura. But the goal is not to lose weight. The goal is to be in a body that you feel comfortable and confident at body fat levels where you feel yourself in, you feel your healthiest, your fittest, your leanest self, right? And that is not fat loss. That is maintaining that body composition. So of course, in order to lose or to get to that point, yes, we have to go through a fat loss phase, but what happens after that fat loss phase? Because we know a hell of a lot about fat loss. We know that we need to be in a calorie deficit, but the scary bit, the bit that doesn't sell, the bit that doesn't get talked about is how you actually get results that last. And that phase matters just as much, if not more, than a deficit. And I say this because I think the fitness industry very much just kind of works on the basis of you will lose weight, you'll put it back on. You will lose weight, you will put it back on. And a lot of these coaches and PTs who do these like shreds and boot camps and things like that, they want you to be forever in a position of you'll lose weight with me, and then you'll do your 6-8 weeks, whatever, and then you'll come back, right? And that's not how it should be. Like, you should not be spending 40 weeks of your year in a fat loss phase, and the other weeks that you're not doing that, wondering how the hell am I meant to maintain this? The bit that you probably need to be coached through and the bit that you actually need the help and support with is the maintaining, right? Because like we say, it's not about being in it's not about being in a fat loss phase forever. It's about maintaining a weight that you feel comfortable in and a composition that actually I feel really lean in myself. I don't need to continue to lose body fat. And nobody talks about it. Really, nobody talks about it. So maintenance, it's a very different physiological state. Of course, it's not fat loss. You are not in an energy deficit. So we lower your calories to be in a deficit. We make sure that the total energy that you are expending is less than what is going in. But maintenance is when you hit that point of, yes, I feel comfortable, I'm happy at my body fat levels. Then you gradually go through a reverse diet. You go through the process of finding your point at which you need to maintain. Now, one of the biggest misconceptions is that fat loss calories and maintenance calories are not the same. Like, the calories you are on to lose weight are not the calories you will be on to maintain. And sometimes that blows people's mind. Like, I've had a few one-to-one clients who I've taken through the process of reverse dieting, or even just explain the principles of reverse dieting. It's so alien because it's really difficult to get your brain around. Well, hang on a minute. If I'm on, let's say, for argument's sake, 500 calories, and even on the days where I'm sticking to it and I'm not seeing the scale changes, and you've been on the calories for quite a while, then it's like, now how on earth am I not going to put weight on those calories? Because I know that I've had occasions where I might have gone out for a meal, I might have had a weekend away, like I might have had a week away, and I've come back and I've piled on the pounds. So how can I eat more but not gain body fat, right? And it is a difficult concept to get around. But and what often happens is because we're scared of the unknown, we're scared of going through that reverse diet, going through maintenance, that you just end up reverting back to old habits, right? You go back to stopping tracking, you go back to eating foods that you were, or having a diet, should we say, that you were before. You go back to just ordering fast food all the time, having takeaways, and the habits start to slide and you never truly find that point of maintenance. So staying on low calories and calling it maintenance is just staying in a deficit, but probably yo-yoing, and that is what most people end up doing. But our body behaves differently when energy availability goes up. So when we have more energy that is available, that's maintenance, right? We're maintaining our energy needs. So what should happen after a diet after weight loss is the habits that you have gained, the habits that you've built, do not just go out of the window. Your training, your protein, your steps, your structure, like that all needs to pretty much stay. Or, okay, yes, some things might adjust, steps might adjust, workouts might adjust, like some things may adjust. And this is why a lot of girls will ask me, or, they'll be in coaching, or they'll finish up on like Thrive, let's say on the last week, or we have our success calls and they're like, right, what calories do I need to be to maintain? Like, what am I aiming for? And I'm like, I cannot tell you, I do not know. And the reason that we cannot tell you is because the reverse diet is actually finding that point of maintenance. Because what tends to happen when we are out of that fat loss phase, right, it might be that because you're not as on it with fat loss, it might be things like steps go down, but it could be either way. It could be steps go up, it could be training goes up, it could be because you actually have more energy to train, that actually you want to train a bit more. You might start more cardio, you might start more running, your performance might change. And that is why we can't just say, right, yeah, these are the calories that you need to be on, because it's a process. It's a step of finding out what calories you need to be on. And the same thing is like your calories that you were on, or your maintenance that you were on before you went into a weight loss phase, that maintenance, those calories will look very different to the calories that you are on after you've lost some body fat. Because of course, metabolic adaptation happens, and that is not starvation mode. That is not your body adapting to, survive starvation to keep energy stored. That just doesn't happen, right? But metabolic adaptation is our metabolism adjusts to support a smaller body if we've lost body fat. So that means that the calories you would need to be on to maintain adjust as well. And that is why I cannot just say, right, yeah, this is what you need to do. But also it's why you probably need to be coached through it, because yes, it is a difficult thing. And I think the biggest thing is the science behind it, we know it's energy in and energy out, finding the balance between them, right? But the psychological thing is really difficult. And the reason why the psychological thing can be difficult is because of scale weight. So you've spent a long time, or, 8 weeks if you are on Thrive, in a fat loss phase, and then you start to up your calories. And then suddenly your scale weight starts going up, right? And then you're like, hang on a minute, why are the scales going up? I must be putting body fat on. I must be. So then you come back out of it, you lower your calories again, right? And you're just back at square one. And you constantly stay stuck in this thing of questioning yourself and being like, am I putting body fat on? I'm just going to end up going backwards. And all you end up doing is yo-yoing, right? You're yo-yoing because you keep telling yourself, I need to lose this weight, it's come back on, and it doesn't make me feel comfortable. But when calories go up, especially carbs, your muscles store more glycogen. So glycogen pulls water into the muscle cell, right? And that alone moves the scale. Of course it does, because you have more water. We know that glycogen, for every gram that we're storing, there's probably 3 to 4 grams of water that are stored with it. And that is not fat, right? It's normal, it's expected. And all it is it's our muscles filling back up. And that's why we start to feel a lot more pumped. We don't feel as flat. We start to, feel like we're more energized in our workouts. We start to be able to perform a bit better. We start to be able to push ourselves. And of course, when we have more energy, we can push harder in training. You can push the weights more, right? More volume, more load, more intensity, which of course means then that might also increase muscle inflammation. And no, not the kind of muscle inflammation that the Pilates princesses are telling you, don't do that because it's inflaming your muscles. Your muscles do not know what stimulus is happening. They don't know whether it's reformer Pilates or weightlifting, right? Neither one or the other will reduce inflammation. If you're stimulating a muscle to grow, there will be some kind of inflammation, okay? The fact is that probably with Pilates, you're not stimulating the muscle to grow, right? Because the mechanical tension there is not great enough. And that is why strength training is the best way that you can gain muscle, right? And gain strength, of course. I'm not bashing Pilates because, of course, it's nice to sit alongside things. It's calm and it's slower. It's, some stretching to help. But your bread and butter needs to be your strength training. Anyway, let me get back. I digress. But scale weight does not equal fat gain. And that is something that's really, really difficult to get our brains around. Now, sometimes, or a lot of the time, and even for myself, I will get to a lower weight than what I think I need to get to, right? Or not even a weight, so to speak, but a lower, position in terms of I'll take my fat loss phase a little bit more than I think, because usually I end up going on holiday, and of course when we go on holiday we end up putting a little bit of a body fat on, but not just that, but because when you then start in a reverse diet and go up to maintenance, the scales will rise, right? And we know that that is inevitable, but if you go a little bit lower than where you thought you needed to be, or where, you know, you were comfortable on the scales, then what actually happens is that when the scales goes up, you're like, oh yeah, actually, yeah, I'm now sitting around that target, that arbitrary target that you created in your head that I wanted to be at, right? And that sometimes is a lot easier for us to get our brains around, right? Which is often why I say, give yourself more time than you think in a fat loss phase. But the biggest, hardest bit is it's that psychological thing of getting over that number on the scales and recognizing that that is not fat gain, right? If it kept continuing, you know, and if it kept going up and up really quickly, then of course you are probably going over your maintenance. You are probably then in a surplus, right? Which, you know, is not a bad thing, especially if like you maybe train for performance, you do CrossFit, you know, things that require a lot more energy and you want to grow some muscle, then brilliant. Like that could be the next phase. But for most people, for most women, we want to sit at maintenance. And that's where I feel pretty comfortable. Like I would just rather stay at maintenance, at a place where, because again, at maintenance, we can recomp, which is we can lose body fat and gain muscle at the same time, right? It doesn't happen quick. It's not really fast and it's not really noticeable, but it's a good place to be. And especially if your training intensity is there, then it's a really nice place to be in where you're managing your energy levels. You know, you've got more energy available to train and push yourself, but also you're not bulking, you're not feeling fluffy, you're not worried about the scales. Like you can still feel, you know, good in yourself, which is the goal, right? That's like where everybody dreams to be, surely. So, you know, if the scales does not move when the calories increase, then we're usually a bit worried. And it usually means that we need to push the calories up a little bit more, right? So the scale rise is expected and it is normal. But like we said, there's no magic maintenance number. And I cannot tell you, right, this is where you need to be at. So, you know, maintenance is not a single number that works forever. It's not a, you know, the calories that, for instance, that I will come out of this fat loss phase on and be on might not be the same maintenance numbers that I might be in this summer, right? Because in summer, I will probably train more because I do anyway. It's nicer. It's nicer. You want to push yourself more, right? So if my energy usage goes up, then of course I will need more calories to cater to that, which is absolutely glorious, right? But this is it. You know, I'm not just being an awkward coach and avoiding the question, and, you know, trying to get you into coaching, but it's because maintenance is a process that we have to observe the data and we have to understand what's going on. And that's really, really important. So yeah, you cannot expect to finish a fat loss phase and go back to the old habits that you were at before, you know, go back to the same eating habits that you were at before, because that's not going to happen for you, right? That's how people regain weight. Post-diet maintenance, you know, it needs to happen. It needs to be an intention of, right, let's get to this point. It's not just, right, I've lost weight, now I'm going to go to my fitness pal, right? Because that is a one-way ticket back to regaining the weight. But it's so important, you know, to gradually increase those calories. And, you know, you don't even have to gradually increase them. Like, it's not a thing of, I know, like, sometimes reverse diets are put across as being like fixing your metabolism and stuff like that. And that's not why we reverse diet. The reason I reverse diet with my girls is because psychologically it's really difficult to have a big bump up in your calories. If I immediately just took you from 1,500 to 2,000, you'd be like, holy crap. You know, your tummy would probably feel a bit funny. You'd be a bit overwhelmed. You'd feel a bit sluggish. Like, it's better to slowly adjust as well to help the psychological changes that do happen and to help you to, you know, lean into the process a lot better. And of course, appetite, scale weight, they need time to settle. It helps with that. So I think the key take homes from this podcast are, yes, fat loss is more attractive. It's way easier to sell. Maintenance does not get the attention it deserves, but it also gets a bit of a bad rap. You know, it gets sometimes it's like, you know, maintaining is a bad thing, you know, especially when we're on a weight loss journey and you're like, I'm plateauing, I'm maintaining, but it is not a bad thing and it should be the goal. Like I said, the goal is to get to that point of maintaining your progress. And if not, you know, that's where the results are lost. And that's why I end up with some girls who might do thrive and, you know, think, oh, it's fine, I'll continue to lose the weight after myself. And I'm like, but hang on a minute, you're going to lose that accountability, you're losing that support, you know. And then they come back to me like a few months down the line being like, right, I'm back at square one plus some more. And it's not because they haven't taken on board everything that they've learned. It's not because the 8 weeks hasn't been successful, but it's because they've not known how to get out of the diet afterwards, especially once that accountability has gone. And that is the big thing that most people miss. So yeah, it is, you know, maintenance is not about snapping back to your old normal. Everyone's maintenance phase will look different, and that is exactly why it's such an important process to go through reverse dieting, learning to maintain and being coached through that as well. Because like I say, the amount of times you've probably learned how to lose weight, it's not a weight loss problem, it's a weight maintaining problem, which is what we struggle with, right? So I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I hope it gave you lots of food for thought on your journey, and just also like a little bit of a light at the tunnel moment of reminding yourself that these calories that you are maybe in a fat loss phase on at the minute are not the ones that you will be on forever, and you will be able to eat more. So eventually there is light at the end of the tunnel. And as well, I just want to finish this just by saying that, you know, again, it does not mean being at maintenance that you have to stick with MyFitnessPal forever, you know, and do this stuff forever. There's lots of other tools that I use with my one-to-one clients where we look at having like on-track days, having days of intuitive eating, you know, learning how to use like the 3-2 method of managing meals and managing the food allowance that you need to maintain. It doesn't have to mean you have to be pals with MyFitnessPal forever, but what it does mean is it's a process worth going through. So I hope you enjoyed it. I shall catch you on Friday for our Q&A. And yeah, let's make it a fabulous week. It is officially February as well, which is exciting. February is my birthday month and I'm feeling old at the minute. So I will be, oh my God, I will have to do some birthday podcasts of some things I've realised in my 30s. Yes, that is a great idea. I'm going to make a note of that, and enjoy your week.